And so as I move this forward, more and more of that gluteus medius changes its orientation. More and more of piriformis changes its orientation. More and more of glute max changes its orientation.
Good morning. Happy Friday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. Man, busy Friday. Facebook groups have been killing. I was just on the IFASU Facebook group. Great questions coming in from everybody that's involved there. So if you're not part of IFASU, you probably want to get on there and start digging in with those fine folks. The intensive, we got a big call this weekend with all the attendees of intensives 1 through 11 that are still doing great work. So excited about that. Q&As have been going really well, which reminds me I have one spot available for a Q&A on this Saturday morning Eastern Standard Time. So if you would like that spot, please contact me through askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com. Today's Q&A is with Luiegi. And Luiegi had questions about split squatting. So we've talked about offset loads as far as emphasizing internal and external rotation elements of the split squat. Now we're going to do it with band tension. So this is a really good discussion for you folks that would want to use this technique and as to why you may want to choose to use it. We also covered some early and late propulsive representations in the foot. So if you still have questions about that, this will be a great call for you guys. So I hope everybody has a terrific Friday, a fabulous weekend. Podcast will be up on Sunday. And so I will see you guys next week.
We are recording and the timer has started. Luiegi, what's your question?
So I was just wondering if you could explain to me the difference between a band pulling the knee from the outside versus the inside in a split squat.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating a late propulsive representation in the lead leg when you're pulling with the band inward on the knee. So what happens is that you're creating concentric orientation of the musculature below the level of the trochanter as you descend into the split squat. So there's a misrepresentation of this. So people say, "Oh, you're pulling on the glute." In fact, I think you asked me about this. Is that you say, "Is it the gluteus medius that is holding that position?" So as you descend into the split squat, the gluteus medius actually changes its direction of pull from external rotation to internal rotation. Okay, and the reason it does that is that it's helping to secure the femur in the acetabulum. So its direction of pull pulls the femur straight into that hip socket. Okay. The musculature below that is maintaining its orientation into external rotation. So what this becomes then is a late propulsive representation. Let me grab my pelvis for a second. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we're talking about then is we're talking about musculature in this general vicinity that is maintaining its external rotation position. So as I push out so if this is the lead leg on the split squat, if I push out into the band, this musculature right here is going to maintain external rotation. So you're actually reducing your ability to capture the internal rotation position in the bottom of the split squat under those circumstances, because if this musculature is maintained in concentric orientation, I don't get my normal nutation of the sacrum.
Okay.
So there's reasons to do this and there's reasons not to do this. You just have to decide what your intention is. So again, if I'm trying to maintain some measure of external rotation orientation of this musculature throughout, then of course you want to have the band that's pulling inward under those circumstances. But it's not glute med that's doing it. In this position, like I said, glute medius, it would be the same thing as orienting the pelvis forward. As if I bent the hip this way, the gluteus medius changes its direction of pull. So when you're standing like this, it's an external rotator on this back half. As I go this way, it becomes an internal rotator.
Okay. Just to dissect on that some more, is it like what degree? I just kind of want to know, because you guys always talk
about degree of what?
Hip flexion when it turns into that internal rotator, the glute medius, and what are the muscles? Is it the muscles below the lesser trochanter? Is that what you're referring to?
It's below here. It's below here. It's right here. this is kind of like, it's not an absolute. It's a, if you look at the notch, it's going to be the stuff that if I could grab that, if I grab the ischium, kind of like a pistol, if I grab the ischium like that, it's going to be that musculature there that maintains its orientation into external rotation.
Okay. Is that, just to go on the dead guy anatomy, is that like pretty much the piriformis and everything else below?
No, piriformis is above that. So the piriformis actually changes its direction of pull as well. So the piriformis becomes an internal rotator. So we're talking about the Gemelli brothers and then the external portion of obturator internus.
Okay, just wanted to really get into the nitty gritty because I just wanted to make sure. I've been looking at like textbooks and just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. It doesn't mean it's not useful. You just have to have an understanding. Is like when they're teaching you in dead guy anatomy position, they're not talking about the change of the orientation. So they'll call glute max, oh, it's an external rotator. Not all the time. They'll say glute medius is an external rotator. Not all the time. And they would say anterior is internal, and then the posterior aspect of glute medius is the external. Well, in dead guy position, yes, but as soon as I do that, no longer. And so the thing that I don't want you to get caught up in is like there's not an exact measurement of this. So think about how many fibers you have that just slowly change their angle of orientation. And so as I move this forward, more and more of that gluteus medius changes its orientation. More and more of piriformis changes its orientation. More and more of glute max changes its orientation.
Oh,
so it's a gradient. So if I go really slowly, you see it? It's like it goes don't, right? And then it changes it. Yeah. So don't get caught up.
Slowly recruiting more.
Yeah. I'm going to give you a number for a frame of reference.
Okay.
60 degrees of hip flexion has been one of these numbers that they'll throw out because they're talking about where piriformis starts to change its direction of pull more often than not. They'll say it's about 60 degrees, which happens to coincide very similarly to where the internal rotation moment at that hip starts to increase rather dramatically. Okay. Yeah. So does it help? Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just for me, I just like to have that reference, just kind of how
I'm okay with that. But what I don't want you to do is get caught up in the number because it depends. It depends on the circumstance. It depends on the orientation of the pelvis. It's not an absolute. It's just it's a frame of reference for comparison purposes. Right?
Yes, exactly.
That's how I want you to look at that stuff. Like don't like if you got to bet $1,000 on whether it's 60 degrees or 59.5 or 42 or whatever it is, don't do that. Okay.
I'll save that money. Gotcha. So you were talking about pulling on the inside, correct?
Oh, you want to change the direction of the pull?
Yeah. What about, can we talk about the outside? I was watching.
Okay. So you're talking about a band that's trying to pull the knee outward that you're trying to resist?
Yeah, right? So you're pretty much medial, foot heavy because you don't want to fall outward.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. All right.
Okay.
So if the band, if me pulling against the band inward so the band's at the knee, we're in a split squat orientation. Let's say that's left foot leading. Okay. Just so we have a frame of reference. So if I have to push the medial aspect of my foot harder into the ground under those circumstances, am I increasing my internal rotation effort or external rotation effort?
Internal rotation effort.
Absolutely. So it's that simple, right? So if I have a band that's trying to pull my knee out and I'm slowly descending into my split squat, I'm actually enhancing my efforts to capture more internal rotation in the bottom of that split squat because that's where it's going to show up the most anyway. So if I'm at the top of a split squat and I'm in this ER representation with the sacrum facing away from me, as I descend into the split squat, what I should see at the bottom is a representation of internal rotation in the pelvis, right? Cool. Now, so you notice that my pelvis is facing the right as I'm leading into this split squat, right? So as I descend, the pelvis is going to face the front and I'm going to capture this internal rotation position. So the musculature that is pulling against the band is the musculature that turns my pelvis towards the lead foot. So I'm actually enhancing my ability to capture internal rotation if I use a band in that way. Let me make a comparison for you
Mhm.
that I've talked about in the past that will also provide you sort of like a light bulb moment. One second. Talking a lot this morning. Okay. If you have an offset load, like a one, you have a, like let's just say you have one kettlebell and you're doing split squats.
Ah,
The band pulling the knee inward that we talked about first is like putting the weight on the same side as the lead foot. So we would call that an ipsilateral load, right? That's going to emphasize the external rotation element coming up out of the split squat. So it makes it easier for me to come up out of the split squat, harder to capture the internal rotation down. If I use a contralateral load, so I put the kettlebell in my right hand with a left foot lead in a split squat, I now made it easier for me to capture the internal rotation moment at the bottom of the split squat. So I can use an asymmetrical load. I can use a band as you described, and I'm capturing the same elements of position at the beginning or at the end of the split squat. Does that make sense?
yeah, I definitely I was confused about that too. The loading of a split squat, and that makes it's now that you mentioned that, you made that comparison, that makes it's just exactly
Yeah.
pretty much the same.
So here's where the money is. Regardless of whether you're using the asymmetrical load or the band under these circumstances, what you're going to want to make sure that you're coaching or feeling yourself, if this is for yourself, it doesn't matter. You're going to want to make sure that you capture the foot position.
Okay.
Because if you don't capture the foot position, it doesn't matter how you load this sucker, right? Because the foot position is your first contact with the ground on that lead foot. And so for me to get internal rotation under any circumstance, that medial aspect of the foot has to be on the ground, right? The kettlebell in the opposite hand helps me do that. The band making me pull in against the band helps me do that. You see it?
Yeah. So would that also go for pretty much all your other exercises, like the supine cross connect and everything other, like
1000%. Yeah, you're
okay.
absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Yep.
Okay, I would definitely coach that for myself and clients as well. Just always get that foot, probably take their shoes off or anything.
So sometimes you do, especially for those clients that wear the really thick, heavy shoes. You know what I mean? They're kind of mushy and heavily padded. They can't feel the ground, and so they're kind of all over the place. And so yeah, sometimes taking them out of their shoes is a necessity. So at least they can gain the understanding. Once they do that, then you typically don't have too much trouble.
Yeah, so just get better or understand that feeling. Okay. How much time do we have left? 4 minutes?
We have 4 minutes and 9 seconds.
Hmm.
Go. Go.
I want to ask about myself. So I've had a left ACL injury like years ago, five plus years ago.
You say injury, what was it, a sprain or did you have a surgery?
Oh, I've had surgery. Had a cadaver in it, and it's been pretty good. But I've always noticed that this left side is always lacking internal rotation, and I always find it like lately I've been finding it hard to when I plantar flex my foot, and then I try to pronate or evert. It's just I feel restricted. Like there's like I'm just hitting a wall, and then
where do you feel the restriction?
Probably like the talus bone around there,
Okay.
and my the lateral muscles, like the peroneus muscles, just feel really tight and just on my left side in that same ACL injured leg.
Is there any position where you can capture that medial foot position with the heel moving towards eversion?
What are you talking about? Like this, the
Is
gait?
there any position? All I'm asking is there anywhere how you position your foot or your leg to capture that medial aspect of the foot?
Maybe when I'm in like a mid stance, like one leg.
So if you can do that, all right, then you can capture the position of the foot that you need. What you might need to understand is what position are you landing in regards to the left foot. So if you've got a left side that is landing and moving very quickly through middle propulsion towards late, then you have connective tissues that are behaving very, very stiff. So they're stiffer, okay? So what you might need to do, and again, not having examined or seen you move around a bit, what you might need to do is teach yourself how to recapture this early propulsive representation. And so now we're talking about not just heels elevated activities, but your whole foot elevated on a ramp kind of a thing. All right. So if we were talking about your split squat, okay, that we started with, what you're going to want to do is you go left foot lead, split squat, foot on a ramp. So the whole foot is even on the ramp. Okay. And then you're going to want to start to superimpose some internal rotation on top of that. So we're talking about the contralateral load, or see, you're already reading my mind. Or you're talking about a band that's pulling your knee outward to hang on to the internal rotation. Because what's probably happening is that you're landing in an ER representation, you're landing in a late propulsive strategy, and you're not capturing the delay moment, the early propulsive representation on that left side, because that's where you superimpose the internal rotation, okay? If you can't capture internal rotation, that's step one, because remember, the late propulsive strategy is an external rotation representation, but it's pushing that side forward. It's turning your sacrum away from that direction, right? Because it's trying to keep that left hip forward, not wanting it to come backwards. So under most circumstances, you're going to have to capture that early representation. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It makes sense as far as like where what you're talking about. I was just why the whole foot versus just the heel, just to
because okay. So there's a difference between. I'm going to show you with the foot. Okay. So one sec. Hang on. I got to turn this silly thing off. There we go. So when the metatarsal's down, and the heel is down, and the tibia is behind the ankle and externally rotated, that is an early representation. The late representation is heel elevated with toe extended. So that would be a dorsiflexed big toe. So these are not the same positions. This is a position where the connective tissues are in a yielding action. This is in a position where the connective tissues are in the overcoming, which means that they're stiffer here, and then they can yield and absorb energy here. You need to find this position, not this one, because chances are you're already using this one. This is why you're having trouble. This is why you're having trouble capturing the internal rotation, is because the connective tissues are trying to push you ahead. They're releasing energy and pushing you forward. You need to create the delay where everything can expand in external rotation, and you create the yielding action in the connective tissues to absorb the energy first. Now you can land, you can start to superimpose your internal rotation. And once you capture your internal rotation, I imagine you're just going to be fine, because now you're going to move through that propulsive phase with good control versus trying to accelerate through it and trying to get to late as quickly as possible. Okay. So strategy wise, the band pulling your knee out, right? So you can pull the knee in, keep it in line with the hip. That's going to get you this internal rotation. It's going to get you in that medial contact with the ground. Offset load, contralateral side in your split squats. Okay. Does that help you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So great to talk to you. Say hi to all my friends in Vancouver, because I got people out there, you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You have friends all over the place. You're like awesome. You're really like.
It's a byproduct of being just really old. Okay. You have a great day, young man. I'll see you.
Thank you.